Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Juan Cristales here. Man, I am going to talk to you guys now about a particular deal in which we actually made money. This is going to be one in a series of ones that we're going to be talking about. This one, let's define what success is on these deals. Number one, we save time, and number two, we actually make money. So this particular property came through from a realtor friend of mine. But here's the situation with this property. The seller was actually a bank, and they had been owner financing this property for a while, and they had to foreclose on it. This company was in another state. So one of the things that we did is we first showed up to the property, and instantly we saw craziness. So I'm going to call this one the crack house turned pot of gold. Because once we pulled up in the neighborhood and once we pulled up on the house, I mean, you could instantly tell that at nighttime it wasn't a place that you wanted to be hanging out with or hanging out. Okay. So we went inside and we started taking pictures. One of the things that we do whenever we go to properties is we try to take 40, 50, 60, sometimes 80 pictures of a property simply because we don't want to go back out to a property again. Whenever you take that many pictures, you kind of just can look through the slide deck of pictures and try to figure out whatever you're looking for. Sometimes the seller hasn't been to the property in a very, very long time. And that's actually kind of a good thing, because whenever you go over there and you take take pictures of the properties, you can send them over to the seller, and then they get a very clear idea of the condition of the property. And sometimes if you have to negotiate with them and they're not really wanting to budge on their price, it kind of is a compelling evidence type of deal whenever you have all these crazy pictures. We go to this property, and I'm telling you, man, there's multiple roofs. And if you've never seen a house that has a lot of roofs on it, basically all that means is that instead of like pulling off the old roof, pulling off the old paper, pulling off the old decking, if the decking needs to be replaced, and the decking simply is the plywood that sits on top of the frame of the house, and then the paper goes on top, and then the shingle goes on top. So sometimes people, in order to be cheap, they don't want to replace all of that stuff, or you don't have to replace the decking, but you replace the paper and the shingles. It's cheaper to just go on top of it. The problem is that like that always sometimes isn't the best solution. So this thing had like 4, I think, levels of shingles on top of it. And that stuff is heavy, and it sometimes can like just weigh on the house and like push the ceiling down, and it's just very problematic. I don't recommend that at all. Now, we saw this. There was a portion of the house where like the roof pitch was like this, and you could see where it was just like completely broken off from the weight. And instantly we walk into the house, in the kitchen, wherever the roof problem was before, you could see where the water was coming in. And it was some cabinets that were old, like particle board. The particle board, they still make them now, but the particle board cabinets, basically they inflate and they soak up water, and they get really fat and thick, and you can tell that they're waterlogged. Whoever was using this kitchen, I mean, this was not fit for people to be living in. I'm not sure if these people were actually living there or whatnot, but we go into this house and there's no appliances. There's waterlogged stuff. There was black mold inside of it. The bathroom was a complete wreck. I mean, it was just horrible. There was so much carpet that was like the old 1970s carpet, the shag stuff that was super dirty, just smelled funky. Anyways, it was just a problem house. You could tell the house had been vandalized. The grass was really high. There was all kinds of stuff left over in the house. It was just, one of those houses. Okay. So one of the things that we did on this particular property is we just went ahead and, we made our analysis. We made our analysis of how we were going to buy the property, and then made the decision, hey, look, we're going to have to buy this thing in order to do something to it to be able to sell it and make some profit. So the decision basically was going to be, let's do a study of the area and figure out what price point we're going to be. We ended up buying the property cash, taking it down, and then we one of our contacts, we asked them to list the property on the MLS for us. The property essentially sat on the MLS for about a couple of days or a couple of hours before we started getting multiple offers on this thing, and then we sold it in about 10 days. We were out of the house, and we had made approximately $28,000. And I know that sounds crazy. What's that? We didn't even have to mow it. It was a very, very easy. So we saved time and we made money. Sorry, my friend Bobby's over there talking. But we've made money on this thing, and it was awesome experience, because you're like, wow, this is actually pretty good. But it takes a little bit of effort to really get to that point. So here's lesson number 1 that we learned from this particular house. Okay. Number one, even though it's a bank that foreclosed, okay? Even though you're dealing with the bank, don't be afraid to really talk to whoever you're talking to. Sometimes, I mean, it's a real life human that actually has to look at this particular asset and figure out what they're going to do with it. So you're still dealing with the seller. This individual has been assigned the responsibility of figuring out what they're going to do with the property. And this particular individual was just, they had had enough with it and they were just ready to bail out on it. When we sent them the slide deck of all the pictures, I mean, we sent them everything, all 60 pictures, 80 pictures, I don't remember how many there were. They were able to get a really good idea of what the condition of the property was. And so whenever we made our offer, it was kind of low and a little bit lower than they wanted, but at the same time, like, look at the condition of this property. Okay? So don't be afraid to send pictures to people, especially if they've already told you that they haven't been to the property in a very, very, very long time. Okay? This particular seller was in another state. The second thing that I'll tell you along that same point is that don't be afraid to make an offer that like might be a little bit embarrassing. Okay, we're in the business to make money, and we have to make good on our word to be able to buy these properties. But sometimes the risk is so great, and you don't really know and understand what the situation is going to be like. So you want to minimize your risk by going really, really low. This brings me to point number two. Point number two in this list is that we had to study this area and figure out, and what I mean by study is just basically pulling all the comps, looking in the neighborhood, trying to figure out what price point was going to be the price point that we could buy it at, where we could make money on it, okay? And so basically we went back 5 years, and people always say, hey, you know what, just go back, 3 to 6 months, but there really wasn't that many solds in that area, and this house just really looked busted. All the houses that were in that marketplace that were selling in the last 3 to 6 months were livable. They were actually pretty decent houses. So it was hard to compare our busted house that we were trying to buy, compare it to what like the market was pulling for like nicer houses, even though the numbers were higher, but we need something to compare this particular property to. So what we did is we just kept extending back. We went back 5 years, looking for houses and trying to figure out, are we still at the lowest rung of purchasing prices even in 5 years? And we were, which kind of like helped us a little bit and gave us some firepower when it comes to our lenders. Okay, we'll talk about lenders and buying cash here in a second, because that's going to be point number three. Point number three, you have to create some sort of a network of people that know that you're in the house flipping business, and you just have to. It doesn't matter if you're a realtor, it doesn't matter if you're an investor, just straight up a landlord. You're going to need people that understand the business that you're in, okay? And by understand the business that you're in, what I mean is they have to understand the mechanics of the numbers when it comes to real estate investing. Because here's the situation that a lot of people get into, especially when they're first starting. Number one, they find a deal that they really like and they fall in love with it and they buy it. And they use their money. Oftentimes, we're a little bit more lax with our own money than we are with other people's money. But that's a story for another time. If you put all your money into one deal and you buy it and you fix it up and then you resell it for a profit, that's awesome and fantastic, man. Good for you to do that. The problem that we run into whenever we do that is that we're always looking for other opportunities and we'll find something else. And now we can't buy that second one. And so in order to be able to scale and be able to go from 1 house to 2 houses at the same time, to 5 houses at the same time, to 10 houses at the same time, we can only do that by using other people's money, or basically private lenders. And private lenders are people that understand real estate. They understand first lien positions and they understand how to lend money. Okay. And so what we did on this property is we borrowed the money. We paid points and interest for a very short period of time to be able to buy the property. We cleaned it out. We took out all the garbage that was inside of it. We gave it a really good once over. I think we may have cut the grass or not. I can't remember. Bobby saying that we didn't cut the grass. Honestly, I don't remember. But the thing is that like we just had to give the house some decent presentation to be able to put it on the MLS. We put the house on the MLS, and then we very, very quickly were able to sell it. Hey guys, I hope you guys learned something from that. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I appreciate your time. I'll talk to you soon.